I've made connections and found out people who are working in different positions. And now I have a position within UQ as a casual job, working with student relations team, which does something similar, but now I get paid for it.
While I've been at UQ, I started out volunteering for student services as a student leader. A lot of the programs involve helping out first-year students to help them settle into university life. That is also the primary objective of the student relations team, which I am currently working for right now. Aside from that, I have also been involved with my student society, which is Justice and the Law Society. That's where pro bono comes in, because we work closely with the UQ Pro Bono Center, and they offer a lot of opportunities for students to volunteer for different legal work, like community legal centers, advocacy work, legal organizations, and even research projects.
For the social and leadership, I actually joined different leadership activity in UQ. The first one is actually the best, is the introduction to academic program, where I have a chance to talk and to work with international students from different countries going here and doing master and PhD degree. And that's such a great chance because I can now learn from the multicultural background, and it's just a great experience to talk to them.
So I got involved in sports at university, I got involved in clubs as well, and they, even though I didn't do them to put on my CV, they ended up showing great skills and great experiences that I could leverage later on. And then I also got involved in UQ Abroad and spent a year on exchange overseas at 2 different places. And then I also recently came back from a fantastic internship in DC, working in a congressional office for a congresswoman from California. So I have a huge interest in women's rights and children's rights, and so also Indigenous Australia. So going to a remote community was just a fantastic experience. And I then followed that up with another internship through UQ, well, organised by UQ, at Legal Aid in Darwin, focusing on Aboriginal affairs.
I studied abroad in Colombia in South America. I chose to do this because I am studying Spanish as part of my degree, and I wanted to be in an environment where English wasn't an option, because I thought that would be a really great opportunity to learn the language. I also chose Colombia because I thought it would be really challenging, rather than choosing Europe, where I had previously travelled before. I'd never been to South America, I'd heard lots of wonderful stories about it, and I just wanted to put myself outside of my comfort zone.
In order to make the most out of my exchange, out of this experience, I have just tried to do as much as I can. I don't say no to anything. So I'm studying in French. I've chosen to live with French people. I got myself a job. I'm probably one of the only international students that had a job. Next semester I'm going to get a second job so I can save up a bit more for travels. But basically it has just taught me these skills that if I'm going to go for a job in the future, I know that I can put down my resume on a desk of a job, on an employer's desk. I think that they won't look at my uni degree. They'll look at my degree and say, okay, she's done this and this and this at university. I don't think the marks will matter. I think it's what experiences has she had. And that's the main reason why I've come on exchange, to show employers that I can do this and I can take what I've learned and put it into practice, which is the main thing that I've gotten out of exchange.
What did I do to develop my employability? I think that's a really good question, and I think I'm quite a good case study for that, because I did the classic high school to university student transition, in that I didn't really care all that much about my grades. I was studying engineering, which at a time when I started was right in the middle of the mining boom, so students were getting snapped up left, right and centre. Didn't really concern myself with where I wanted to be in the future. And I caught that in third year, and I realised that the kind of place that I would be satisfied working at professionally wouldn't be satisfied with me at that particular point in time. So some of the things I went about to improve that, and that was 100% about fixing my employability, was getting involved more with co-curricular activities, both within and external to UQ. So I did a lot of interfaculty sport. I captained the chemical engineering interfaculty touch team for a couple of years, and we won. I sought out employment for my engineering professional practice with the largest oil and gas company in the world, and I was successful in getting that. I took my grades from 4s and 5s to straight 6s and 7s for the rest of my time at uni. And I really sort of, and actually thinking about it, the best part of that was the story I was then able to tell to employers, because when my academic transcript came up as a topic of discussion in interviews, as it invariably did, there was always this, so what happened in third year, Will? And I told basically that story, and that employers are typically impressed with that. They like to see that, okay, yeah, this guy knows where he wants to go and he's capable of fixing it. So I think employability is important to me, and yeah, I mean, those are some of the things I did at UQ to help develop it.
Well, the activities that I did while I was at UQ, I tried to participate in a lot of stuff outside of your usual classes and projects. So I actually applied for a number of internships while I was in school. One of the ones that really stood out for me was a really good opportunity we had with the business school that we did in collaboration with the School of Journalism and Communication, where we basically worked with an advertising agency in Brisbane to develop a project for Queensland Health. So that was really fun for me. I think I did that in the second year of school. I did 2 really prominent volunteering jobs while I was there, to me. The first was for World Press Freedom Day while I was a freshman in university. And the next one I did was for the Mercedes-Benz Fashion Festival, where I volunteered as a dresser, which had nothing to do with PR at all, but it really exposed me to the fashion industry. And it was really quick and really fast-paced, and I got to meet a lot of people, which was great for networking, which is obviously important in PR.
So something that was drilled into us pretty hard with journalism and communication was internships. So I tried a lot from about my second year onwards to get into as much interning work as I could. So from memory, I did about 4 internships throughout my degree. I also was a member of the Journalism and Communication Society, and in my final year was a marketing officer. And that was a really good opportunity for connection building and networking and things. And I think at the time I kind of thought it might have been a bit of a waste of time, but since leaving my degree and now seeing some of those people go into journalism or other PR roles, and knowing I have to now have those relationships with them in my career, it's been so handy to have done that. The other thing I did that was very helpful in my degree was a Vietnam reporter course, which is basically an intensive 10-day course in Vietnam where we had to apply the journalism skills we'd learned in a foreign context. And rather than having your lecturer say, okay, you need to do this specific assignment on this topic, we had to be very proactive in organising all our own interviews and knowing how we were going to get to and from places. And it was very, you had to be very self-sufficient and organise things yourself. And I think that was really useful for knowing what a practical work context was like.
One of the important things that I did that I absolutely loved and changed my entire life and career path was the study abroad program. So I went on exchange for a year to an engineering school in France, and it was a challenge academically, linguistically, culturally, but I loved every second of it. And I had the opportunity to also join the French workforce after completing my exchange through an internship. And so that professional aspect as well was part of it. So also understanding then how to incorporate what I'd learned at UQ, what I'd learned on exchange as a UQ student into the local workforce, which was absolutely unbeatable experience.
When I was a student at UQ, beyond my academic background, I really tried to connect with as many people around Brisbane. So I was participating to various areas of charities. I was going to networking events, and also UQ organizes a lot of conferences. So I was attending them, meeting with the different speakers, and they provided very good insight about how it was to work within their companies, how it was to work in this specific role, and that really helped me to understand also how a business was working, really. I was also participating to the commercialization project with UQ, which really helped me to understand how to work on a project with people who are working in a company and how to maximize the effectiveness of the company as a whole. So really being part of a team and also working independently and understanding how the system was working, that helped me to gain those soft skills that I needed to secure my first job.
Outside of the university, I obviously got my job, which turned into where I am now, while I was still studying. So I got that during sort of second year, and that led into a number of sort of different things with the Australian Institute of Management. It led to a number of sort of industry sort of memberships, industry bodies. I sat on some advisory boards and those sort of things. So very quickly those sorts of things started to turn into, I guess, wider ranges of experience, which just give you, as I said, a wider scope to be able to apply the sort of learnings to.
A particularly effective way to develop your employability and to communicate that employability to a prospective employer is through experience. The types of experiences that might be seen as extracurricular during your study. So actually, whether it's part-time work that you might not necessarily consider to be directly related to the career that you might want to pursue once you graduate, or in terms of volunteering experience, studying abroad is a fantastic way of developing a set of attributes that employers see as particularly valuable in prospective employees, about proactivity, self-motivation, about the ability and willingness to put yourself out there, as it were. And through those experiences, develop a range of attributes that employers don't necessarily or aren't necessarily convinced that can be developed within the classroom, because there's a whole debate about the extent to which certain attributes, problem-solving skills, critical thinking and so on, can be effectively developed within a classroom in a way that they can within experience. So experience is critical, and the way I tend to think about this, and talking to employers suggests this is the case, that if you like, study and the types of things you might do as a part of a normal degree represent table stakes. They're the things that will get your foot in the door. But for positional advantage, give you that advantage over another candidate for that particular job, is experiences that mark people out as particularly employable.
I think experiential learning opportunities are crucial to developing you as a person and also to developing your employability. So, for example, at the University of Portsmouth in the School of Law, we have a very rich offering of clinical legal education where students can go and work at one of our internal clinics. So we have an employment law clinic, an intellectual property law clinic and a general legal advice clinic. They can work in one of those clinics, and there they are understanding how the law works in practice. They are seeing clients in the flesh. They are having to deal with difficult clients. They're getting that sense of fulfillment that comes from, a job well done, giving advice that makes a difference. They're working as part of a team in a real life situation where the stakes are high because it matters. If you get it wrong, there's a consequence. And I think for some of the law students that we teach, that's really important, using their knowledge, contributing to their community. I think it also grows them as a person because they step outside their own world. They see what's happening in another section of society, in a different community. So I think that's a really good way for them to learn. It's very difficult to have a student just do a course to develop their commercial awareness, to develop their ability to negotiate. I think that comes with kind of repeated experience in a real life context so that they can judge how it felt, how it went, what they might do differently next time. And I think only by doing it do students get that rich experience. All of these additional extracurricular activities and experiences and part-time jobs, they're all really valuable to students that are going into the legal profession and indeed any graduate job. I think the problem for students is that they'll sometimes think, how did my experience in that call centre really equip me for life in the real world, for life in a law firm? And my answer to that would be, well, what have you been doing? You've been negotiating with really tricky people. You've been persuading people to give you another 5 minutes on the end of the telephone because you just want to sell them that window or to get their feedback on something. You've had to deal with conflict, quite probably, if you've worked in a call centre. You've had to communicate with people. Maybe, I think if you've got a job
selling double glazing or whatever one sells these days, you're working to targets. Well, what better preparation for life in a law firm? You're being judged by your targets.
In terms of learning through experience, which is non-workplace based, same thing. I think the focus predominantly for me would be on non-technical skill development. So learning how to communicate with others, particularly if they're international students as well. Learning about the diversity and the fact that there's different cultures and how to manage that. Also learning to apply your skills in different contexts as well, so whether it's a sporting context, it might be in an area where there's people of great seniority, or it might be people where you're working with peers or with children, so adapting your non-technical skills to whatever context you're in, which means that then you'll be able to carry them in across a range of different circumstances, which I think will set you in good stead for actually when you graduate and you go into a range of different employment scenarios.
Why is experience important for graduates? I think it is important because it builds up their skills, it builds up their confidence, but I also think it builds up their identity. It provides them with a sense, perhaps, of the types of people they want to be and how that relates to their job market goals. So I think experience is very important, and I think employability is very centrally rooted in the whole idea of experience. Employability researchers have called this the economy of experience, which is really the experiences, life achievements that graduates have developed through the course of their education, through the course of their social lives, through the course of their life interests, initial employment, that they're able to package into a narrative and almost kind of sell to employers to say, look, I've got all these kind of experiences, that makes me more interesting, makes me more distinct and potentially more employable than another graduate who doesn't have those experiences. I think the evidence suggests that work experience is very important, and so are things like internships. So even if graduates have quite minimal work experience and it might be in quite sort of low-skilled work, I think that builds up competencies, skills, a sense of how the labour market works and what you need to do to succeed in the labour market. If the degree is not enough, people have to add to their skills base and their portfolios, and clearly things like taking part in social activities, volunteering, those kinds of things are very important.
We hate to break it to you, but no one can guarantee you a job, especially in today's competitive labour market. We certainly can't. But what we can do is tell you how to give yourself the best possible chance to secure your first job and to succeed throughout your career.
Everyone is talking about employability, but what does it really mean? A lot of people think it is just about getting a job. They're confusing it with employment. Getting a job is one outcome of employability. After all, everyone wants a job after they graduate, don't they? In order to give yourself the best possible chance of getting a job, you do need to be employable. This means that you have developed skills and personal attributes that will make you an effective employee, and you can apply them appropriately in the workplace.
We have talked to a lot of people about their views on employability, from students and graduates to employers and other employability experts, and you will hear more from these people throughout the course. Let's now hear from representatives from each of these groups.
Well, employability is much more than just a graduate offering an employer a degree, and it's much more than just about graduate employment. It's about helping students to develop the knowledge, the skills, and that's technical, transferable, specific skills, experiences, attitudes, achievements, attributes, behaviours, all of those combined that they're going to need to make successful transitions and successful contributions, not just in terms of employment into the economy, but in terms of their contribution to society and the community in which they're going to live. So in many ways, employability is about life skills.
Well, from my view, employability is not just getting a job, but it's actually getting a job in the right field, in your area of expertise, and also keeping that job and being able to build a career. What we've seen is really, we're not just talking about doing your basic job 9 to 5. What we're seeing is seeing opportunities, taking responsibility, looking outside, bringing opportunities into the organisation, being ready, being risk kind of taking on risk and not being risk averse. These kinds of things are the types of skills which get noticed by the employer because they help the employer themselves be competitive.
To me, employability encompasses different notions. The first notion that I would understand from employability would be how an employer would perceive you as a potential employee within the company. So what value do you bring to the employer? The second notion that I understand from employability would be how would you be able to perform in this job? Do you have the knowledge? Do you have the skill set? But not only the skill set in terms of hard skill sets that you've learned from university, but also the soft skills. Are you able to communicate clearly? Are you able to talk to different stakeholders? So that really encompasses those two notions. And it's really important to understand that right after your studies to maximize your chance to secure the right job.
I think employability is really dependent on the industry you're in. However, something that applies across the board is that it's about being able to apply the skills you've learned at university in a practical context. You can be book smart from what you've learned in your degree, but can you apply that in the workplace? And it's all good if you can talk the talk in an interview, but you need to be able to walk the walk, as everyone would say. And that's really important for employability.
So employability for me is more than just kind of the process of applying for a job or having characteristics that are desirable to an employer. Central is adaptability, so actually being able to fit within a new scenario or setting, integrate with a new workspace or with a new group of colleagues. So it's about taking the skills that you've learnt so far through your study and being able to apply them in a new setting with new people to encourage you to bring out new characteristics. I think as well it's about genuinely knowing what you can do and how you can use those skills for a workplace. So being able to evaluate what you've done and understand how those skills can be brought out to achieve a task, to work with someone for a common goal, or to eventually contribute to a project.
What the people you have just heard from have all mentioned is that employability is more than just having a list of skills on your resume.
This is just a list.
The list becomes meaningful only when you convert the skills into action by doing your job well. Lucy summed it up really nicely when she used the phrase walk the walk. In employability terms, this is about being able to do a job.
By studying for your degree, you will develop both intellectually and personally. Once you've graduated, you will continue to contribute to society in many ways. One of these is through your employment and professional roles. Graduate jobs require someone with technical knowledge and specific skills for industry, and your degree will provide this. But employers also expect you to perform effectively and appropriately in their workplace.
That sounds obvious, but you have to keep in mind the underlying reason for this. Productive employees working together make an organisation more effective and help to meet its strategic goals.
And an effective organisation contributes to the development of the economy. So it makes sense that employers choose their staff carefully, and this is why meeting employer expectations form a significant part of what makes someone employable.
Your employability is not just about you. You can think about your employability like this: developing yourself personally and professionally for a successful career. And by doing this, contributing to your organisation's effective operation, growing your community and advancing the economy. That is what being employable is all about.
So, mystery solved. Now you know what employability really is. We're going to help you maximise yours.
Employability means to me having all of those skills that go beyond what you've learned at uni or what you've done in the classroom. So knowing how to communicate really professionally is a big one. Also being able to take initiative, knowing who to ask for help and where to get help, those are really things that I think are really important as well.
To me, employability is a kind of a collection of achievement like skill, knowledge, experiences, and a personal attribute that make a people more likely to get a job and also successful and finish their job with minimum instruction. It's not just about how you can get a job, it's also about you can complete the job well, and it also implies the capacity of the people to move between the job, to adapt to new working environment, and to be flexibility in their way to face challenging and finding solution.
I think to me the term employability is really about taking those experiences that you learn in either in real life or in university and applying that to the workforce. So whether it's taking the experiences from a part-time job and the things that you learn, or through university and the things that you study, but really making sure that you apply those skills in such a way that you can learn and develop and take those experiences to your workplace.
I think that employability is a word that people kind of just use for the sake of using it. I actually think that employability is more about who you are as a person and then how that person then can operate within a work environment. And so it's about who you are, what you're developing, how you're doing it, and then how that can then be applied. And I think that and then how you get the job done.
For me, the term employability is probably more about focusing on what you can deliver once you've found a job, and less about the recruitment process. So I've worked across a couple of cultures now, Germany, France and Australia, and each time I definitely noticed that it's about the credibility that you can bring to the position. That's what employability for me means. Because each time you're starting something new, you're starting something with a new team, they don't know you yet, and so employability is about developing that credibility pathway. For instance, I guess it's different for every industry and sector. I work in a sales function in an engineering industry. And so it's definitely about targets, it's definitely about your performance and what you can bring to the job in terms of concrete figures. So for me, that's what employability represents in my context.
I think employability for me really focuses on two components. One being the sort of like skills and abilities I guess you bring to a role in terms of what you can actually do for an organisation. And I think that distinction is pretty important in terms of what you can do for an organisation as opposed to what you're trying to get out of an organisation. And I think the second part, which really ties into that, is the attitude in which you do it with. So it's the way in which you approach everything that you're trying to do. Do you go above and beyond? Do you do all those extra things that someone in this capacity is going to be looking for, above and beyond a sort of a checklist, I guess, of skills?
In terms of what employability means, I think there's a lot of confusion between employability and employment outcomes. To me, employability means having the demeanour and attributes and capabilities to achieve employment and also to perform well in the workplace and to contribute to the organisation you're based in. Whereas employment is about actually just achieving, or employment outcomes is about achieving a job, and that's one measure of employability. So you've got an understanding of the culture of the profession that you're intending to move into, the professional conduct, expected standards of behaviour, and the ideology of where you're intending to work. So I think that's really important, because without that you might have the skills, but you won't be able to translate them and operate successfully as a professional in the workplace.
For me, employability is, in a narrow sense, it's the skills, the knowledge, the personal attributes that an individual possesses, which enables them to obtain a job, maintain that job, and move jobs over time. But to understand it properly, I think it's important to understand it in its broader context. This is its economic context, its social context, and also its institutional context, in the sense of how employers recruit jobs, the attributes they're looking for, and so on. So employability has both a relative dimension and an absolute dimension. The absolute dimension is what the individual can do, what they know, how they behave, and so on, in a way that's appropriate for a particular context. But it's also, we need to understand that in its relative context in the sense of how they measure up against other people that they might be going for in terms of a job, but also in terms of how they are able to express those skills, those attributes and so on. And that's on the basis of the experience they may have had and how they explain those experiences of having an impact on an individual to make them more competent in relation to a particular job.
To me, employability needs to be distinguished first of all from this idea of employment, so as a graduate outcome. So it's not about measuring has somebody got a job, can somebody get a job. So actually that first job that they've got is not necessarily reflective of their potential. So employability is different. That's about that person's readiness for the graduate recruitment process. It's about their confidence at navigating that graduate recruitment process. And I think if it's done well, if you've really helped somebody to develop their employability, I think then it becomes about helping them to navigate that career process as well. So it's about gaining entry into whatever profession, whatever job they want to go into. And actually, through the skills they've developed, their sense of self-confidence, their sense of belief in themselves, their sense of readiness, their ability to know themselves, I think that's crucial. And that equips them for a more fulfilling career, and better suited to the current world, where actually they're probably going to have more than one job in a career. They may face a difficult economic climate and they'll be able to respond accordingly.
What distinguishes employability from employment, I think, is that employability is a more active process. It's very much about the individual taking responsibility for their own job market futures, and it's a lifelong process. It doesn't stop at any finite point. So people have to continually work on their employability, I think, through the whole of their working lives, and there's no one-stop finite point where they're employable and then can enter the job market for a long period of time.